Are you sick of seeing peaceful people being locked away for victimless crimes? Instead of trying to get out of jury duty, consider taking it so you can do the right thing. A single juror with a conscience can send someone home to their family instead of to a jail cell. If there's no victim, how can there be a crime? And if the judge or prosecutor are keeping you in the dark, what are they trying to hide? You can vote your conscience instead of being a pawn of the state. For more information, Google jury nullification or check out the Fully Informed Jury Association at fija.org.
Let me ask you a question. Do the other troops, was anybody ever talking about this stuff? What are we really fighting for? What's really going on?
Kind of. There was massive displeasure with Obama as president, and everyone was like, oh man, fuck that guy, he's a terrible president, I can't believe he's commander-in-chief. But that's as far as it ever went. We all, and I'm sad to say even me, we all said, well, our commander-in-chief is a piece of crap, but he's still our commander-in-chief, and if Congress sends us there, and he sends us there and Congress authorizes it, we're going, and we're going to be there.
It is slavery, it's just a different name. A lot of people don't realize what it is, and when we bring these ideas to light and make people realize, that this government force is the problem.
And to me, it's like, I say, imagine you're an abolitionist in the 19th century, and these slave masters are giving you the same exact argument. Who's going to pick the cotton?
Hey, Seeds of Liberty, read the show's description, please. Fervently complete the course, report him to the infantry. Finish him, deconstruct the fallacy. Seasonal production means it seems to spawn a tragedy. Peep the action, please, a fraction of the allegory. Corollary cadences, complaining on a sadder story. Menial, recently reading into the thesis here. Mirroring the people who completely fail to see it though. Seeing is believing, yes, the reason is appealing most. Reading enemies is just enables you to see it too. Menial, recently reading into the thesis here. Mirroring the people.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seeds of Liberty podcast. This is episode 75. As always, the Seeds of Liberty podcast is covered by a BIPCOT no government license. This allows reuse by anyone except governments and the agents thereof. You can find out more information about this at bipcot.org. So this week, we have our friend Andrei Chira back in the now vacated Danilo chair, and we're going to talk, I think Dave wanted to talk a little TPP action, but first I hear Andrei, we were a little delayed in getting started tonight because Andrei had an interaction with some road pirates. What happened, man?
Well, it was just another day going back home because where I work in Prattville, at our Prattville store. I work for Vape Escape, and I was driving back home on 65 going south towards the 85, and lo and behold, I just happened to be going just faster than everybody else within his particular point of view. So blue lights come up behind me. I pull over to the side of the road, as expecting to get either a talking to or a ticket or whatever, maybe getting shot. Hopefully not getting shot on the side of the road. That would be
did you flash him
the best way to get out there. That's what I was going to talk about. So, because I have my military ID along with my pistol permit and my driver's license, I decided to I wanted to test a theory, which in my mind, I like to figure out whether or not, if I do certain things with status, whether or not I'm going to get favorable treatment because they think I'm one of them. And nothing quite says you're a status like a .gov ID, you know what I mean? So... So he pulled, he came over, he asked for my license and my registration. And so I pulled out my military ID, I grabbed my registration from my, glove compartment, handed over to him, and he's like, oh, this isn't your driver's license. Like, oh, my bad, I'm sorry. I went to, I just didn't think about it. So, I pulled out my driver's license, handed it over to him. He's like, hey, you were going pretty fast there. You were doing like 85, so you really need to slow down, man. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem, sure. Like, all right. I'm just going to let you off with a warning, but just try and slow down, okay? Okay, yeah, no problem, officer.
And those Montgomery, those state troopers in Alabama are not, if they pull you over, if those blue lights go up and it's a state trooper, you're getting a ticket.
Yeah, which is what I initially assumed. I figure even if, assuming that even if he's like of favorable disposition towards me, I'm probably still going to get a ticket, and this is probably still going to cost me way more money than I want to spend. But as luck would have it, he saw the military ID. He was like, oh, well, okay, you know, whatever. It was all very cordial. It was all very polite, and, you know, it sounded like he was really trying to give me a break. You know what I mean? Really going out of his way to make sure that I didn't get into trouble with the law. Of course, it's utter horseshit because, you know, who gives a shit? It's 85 on an open highway and there's hardly anybody on the road.
One of us.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, you played the Welfie card, and it most likely paid off. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I've never
the Welfie card.
I've never driven in Bama, but according to Dave, apparently state troopers are notorious. I mean, that's pretty much the way it is here in New Yorkistan. State trooper pulls you over, you're most likely not walking away with it. You know, anything less than one ticket. So you know,
that's true.
It's very rare that you get off now. Like, the only cops I've ever dealt with that have let me off a couple more than once was in North Carolina. I got pulled over there a bunch of times and I actually got let off. But yeah, I mean, I was going to ask if you thought that it was the card, but obviously you think you're pretty sure it was, because if they're
I'm almost certain, because the chances of you getting away without a ticket, like, unless that particular officer is just like tired of doing crap that day. He's like, you know, I don't even want to bother writing this, so just get on your way and don't let me see you again. But the chances of that happening are between slim and none.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't mess with their own, man. They really don't.
It was weird because, like, after I got done with it, you know, I went on my way. I accelerated to 70 miles an hour, and he just zoomed past me and, you know, to wherever the hell he was going, which was nowhere because he's a state trooper and he's on the highway. That's all he does. But it was this weird feeling. It was like, I guess this is what, like, people with forged documents in Nazi Germany must have felt like when they made it through a checkpoint. They're like sitting there like, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Is this going to work? And then they just like, you know, in the movies where they hand the documents and there's like this, you know, this horribly dramatic pause.
Sure.
And it seems like it takes forever. It was kind of like that. I mean, obviously it wasn't, you know, I wasn't worried about getting dragged over to the, well, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I was
but getting dragged out of the car and getting shot, but yeah, it was weird. It was a weird feeling.
Well, I mean, you have it. Why not try to play it?
That's what I'm saying.
What was your rank in the military?
Specialist. E4's best way I can think to describe it is you're a private, but you've been in long enough that you know how to shift work and blame onto other people.
Yeah.
Which is an art that we call
you're
shamming.
Used to, like, the way you're used to the way the system works in that, though. You know, you're not, you know, when the general walks around, his shit don't stink, you know? Like, that's, you know, the same thing. You're in the system, you know? The police are just another byproduct of the state. You're with that military ID, you know, that's a sign that you're in the state. So, you know, why hurt a fellow member of the state?
Well, I think that I don't think it's necessarily another member of the state. I think active duty and/or veterans are given usually more leeway in those situations, because if it's just some like pencil pusher in a government office, most cops, at least that I've come across, will look down on these people, because more often than not, they will actually try to. They won't just hand it nicely like Andrei did, just hand it to him like almost like you're pretending like you did it accidentally when he calls you on it, like, oh, so sorry. Like, instead they're like, do you know who I am? I work for this person, you know, like that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're more likely
like,
to,
I'm
you know,
Senator Blobbity-Blaw's secretary's cousin.
Well, exactly.
And I'll call him and you'll be fucked out of your job, buddy.
Well, exactly. So there's more people like that. At least you see more incidents like that, you know, people that are in those positions. So I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily agents of the state. It's particular agents of the state, because even, you know, here in New York, the NYPD and the New York Fire Department are usually at odds with each other, and they will usually mess with each other, and the cops have they don't care. if you have like I'm a fireman, like, I don't give a shit. You're still getting a ticket. You know, out here where I am, it's a little different than
I've heard of police cards in New York. I've heard like if you're buddies with the police, they can like give you a card. And
Well,
if
yeah,
you get-
I had
depending on like how bad like you screw up, you can just flash that card and
yeah,
people will be like, yeah, it's fine, never mind.
A PBA card. I had multiple ones over the years because I've had years ago. My best friend at the time, his dad was a detective in the city, so we all, him and all of his close friends each got one.
That should just make you be an anarchist right there, right? If the law can be bought and sold as favors, right? Like as far as like it being enforced.
Well,
then
but it's not
farce from the
bought and
get-go.
sold though. But it's not bought and sold. They hand them out for free, so it's okay.
Yeah, and I did.
No. Everything comes at a price.
Well, no,
Oh, I
because
know.
they're only they're given these cards by their superiors, but they're only supposed to go to, family members, you're supposed to be immediate family, really, and they know everybody abuses these things, but that's the line they play. But you're right. If you look at it with a critical eye, you should go. If you're somebody who up until that point believed in the system, believed it worked, believed the law is the law, all that stuff. That should clue you in. If you, yeah, but that should clue you in if you go, wait a minute, why did all these other people get preferential treatment now? How does that work?
Of course, with those police cards, they don't eat their own, man. That's like, hey, we're in the gang. Imagine, I bet the Crips have some sort of level of protection like that between different gangs.
Looking on it from this side, you see that now, sure, but that's what I'm saying. You should giving that a critical look should tell you that, but I had no idea. I still it didn't really tip me off.
Oh yeah, you probably thought it was cool as shit,
Well, it just made sense to me that the original purpose of these cards to give them to the family members and such, that just made, I just accepted that without even question. It's just of course the family members would get these cards. Why wouldn't they?
The first time I heard that, I was like, that's some typical New York bullshit.
Yeah,
because I'm down here in Alabama.
So like I said, I had a couple of them over years. I befriended it. There was a couple of cops that when I worked at the 7-Eleven directly across the street from the precinct, there was, all the cops came in there obviously for free coffee and whatever else they wanted to get, but there was a couple of them that were loved to hang out and bullshit with all the people that work there, especially the young, the girls that worked there, and one of them ended up hooking up with one of my friends for quite a while, although it turned out that he had a history of that, and I think he finally got busted 5-6 years ago and finally got kicked off the force because he was doing it on duty. He would meet up with these girls, go down to the local park when he was supposed to be patrolling that area and just park somewhere. He would hang out with us.
Get him in that cruiser.
He would hang out with us.
Get him in that cruiser and show him that nightstick. I got it.
Exactly. And he would hang out with us on duty and drink with us, and we thought nothing of it. It was just he was the cool cop. That's the way we looked at it. We're all right, he's the cool cop. He'll never bust us. So he gave us cards. He gave us the PBA cards. And then I've had clients in the past that have been law enforcement and have offered me them. Although one of them, I think, stopped offering them to me after he actually got called one Sunday morning because I got pulled over doing 70, 75, and a 55. And I just, handed the card along, but the cop insisted, he was a state trooper, so he didn't care about the county police, which was because what I was saying before about how the New York City, the fire department, the police department are at odds all the time. The county cops and the state cops don't like each other most of the time. So.
Oh no, yeah, it's divide and conquer in the apparatuses as well.
So getting back to the original point, I think Andrei received the preferential treatment not just because he's any old agent in the state, but because he's a military agent of the state, which
I think it also goes back to the whole the way that the military are deified, especially nowadays. It's they're held to this enormous pedestal, and if you put on a uniform and you served in the military, any branch of the military, I mean some places, if you're around Fort Bragg and you're an Air Force puke, I mean, most of the time they'll just laugh at you, but they're going to still treat you with more respect than any other human being, just by default, which I've always thought, even when I signed up, I always thought it was just the most bizarre thing in the world. I just did not understand it, and I still don't. Having been in, I understand it even less because there is some fucked up, weird people in the Army. So it's just it also kind of draws into that too.
Is it that way, like, on army-based towns? Because, like, I lived in one, but is it like these people walk around with, like, reverence? Did you walk around like, hey, I'm important, everyone look at me? Was it kind of like that? When you're
Well,
all
I mean,
decked out in
I
your-
didn't. I mean, I didn't have that feeling, and I didn't have that attitude walking around. I always kind of tried to keep myself as humble as possible. But you could tell, like, you know, the same way you walk into, like, a good red-blooded American store, and, you know, a cop walks in the door and it was like, oh, hey, how's it going, officer? You know, how's your day? You need anything? What can we help you with? It was like that. It was weird. It was the weirdest fucking thing. Like, I've never experienced anything like that.
My whole life, I've always, every time I see someone in the military, you know, it's like, gotta walk up, shake their hand, tell them thank you for your service, you know, God bless USA, all that mess, you know, that was the whole thing. That was, you know, that we were taught to do that, you know.
I was never even taught to do that, but I still did it a lot anyway. Even veterans, especially like the older ones, I would see like wearing their hats and whatever, all proudly. Like, yeah, I was never, even though my dad was military, and so was my grandfather. Both my grandfathers? I think both my grandfathers.
I went through that phase when I started looking into anarchy and kind of, you know, started really getting into the philosophy. That phase of where I like disdained the, you know, the military and the vets and everything. Just, man, stupid idiots, you know. And then now it's more shifted towards rat in a cage thing. I mean, you know, it's like, hey, look, these are all just individuals as well. Like, I really feel sorry for everybody that's stuck in the system. Like, I wish they could get out. And I look at it more of as a victim thing instead of a...
No, because you... I understand the initial anger you're describing and maybe loosening up on that, but you can't put them in... To put anybody in victimhood status in that situation is stripping them of their own agency.
Everybody that's...
They still make choices.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that far into victimhood. Like, I'm not talking about removing moral agency. I'm talking about just the victimhood of the current human condition, this current system that we're in, this Fed banker bullshit system that's going on right now. The mass militarism is just a byproduct of that, and it's just, you realize we're all caught in that bullshit system.
Yeah, but okay, but I still don't think, like, I don't know. If you're talking about everybody, then I don't know why you need to mention it in regards to these people, because like.
Well, I mean, you used to think that the you know, you go through this phase where you think, you know, all the soldiers are just willfully accepted of. No, they're just as dumb and blind as everyone else.
Oh yeah, and some more than others.
Well, yeah, they may be blind to they may have accepted more wholeheartedly the indoctrination than some other people. But you still, I mean, I'm sure Andrei can attest to it on some level. Like, you being inside of that, it's definitely a completely different worldview than what anybody like you or I, Dave, would get to see just by looking at what they've done and how they act now. Like, you become more knowledgeable.
Well,
you become more knowledgeable about certain things.
Well, a lot of what it comes down to, and this is actually part of the reason why I, you know, after my time in the military, it was so much more, you know, self-evident as to why the state was so horribly wrong. You basically agree to put your life on the line for political interest. And once you kind of wrap your head around that, which a lot of people will just, you know, they'll cog-diss it out and be like, oh, well, I'm just not going to think about that, and I'm just going to do my job. But every one of us, I am 100% certain, every one of us comes to this conclusion at some point in our military careers, some sooner than others. And you have to either reconcile that and realize that this is horrible, this is the worst possible thing I could possibly be doing, or you just ignore it and, you know, shut your eyes and just kind of go about doing your job and ignoring it.
Well, there's those two options, sure, but we talked about this on one episode a long time ago. I can't remember who it was. It was somebody we had who was former military, and it might have been Donnie. I think we were talking about the suicide, you know, the number they always throw around about the 22 a day, you know,
yeah.
Which always seems like a whole heck of a lot to me. Like, how many people are there? Aren't there only like
Well, most of
aren't
it
there,
is,
aren't there only like 100 to 200,000 tops in all of them active duty at all times?
Most of them are Vietnam vets. That
I think it's
committing
talking
suicide.
specifically about veterans and not like recent
No,
veterans. I think it's talking about like
active
all veterans.
Well, no, I understand, but if there's only like how many, even at the heights, like just in the wars themselves, there was so many, but a lot of
I mean,
them,
there's
a lot of them, a
millions.
lot of them died
There's gotta
then.
be a
A
million.
lot of them have died since. So, you know,
Well, yeah, they died because they killed themselves.
not all of them though. But the
I don't know how many
couldn't help
vets
that, I'm
are in
sorry.
this country. I have no clue.
You're a horrible human being.
know.
The point I was trying to get at though is because I think yeah, well, I'm pretty sure it was Donnie because I remember asking him this and he didn't really actually give me much of a response. But do you think that because like you said, you either figure it out and go, oh my God, this is horrible, or you bite, you just close your eyes and bite your tongue and keep going. But the third option obviously is at least one more option is obviously suicide. And do you think, just in at least your experience, the people you got to know and stuff like that, do you happen to know anybody that was at least close? Not maybe like a friend or a buddy of yours, but at least somebody close enough in your ranks that has done it or like has committed suicide already?
Well, we actually did attend a funeral for somebody who did commit suicide.
Oh, okay.
While I was on active duty. I don't remember what the reason. It was personal issues that led him to it.
Okay, but so that's what I'm saying. You at least have that experience. So like, but just
Yeah.
I mean, again, you being inside, I know you hear more stuff than the plebes out here do. Obviously, not much more, but there's certain things that you are privy to, and at least you hear talk among other soldiers or whatever. I just automatically think that a lot of those people, sure, you may have personal issues, but I got to think a lot of it is the realization of what the hell you were actually doing.
Yeah, well, that's
Would that
what
make
drove
sense? Would that
me
make
to-
sense?
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And like when that moment hit me, and it's funny that we mentioned this because I actually had a couple of times where I hit a very, very deep level of depression. I mean, it was really bad. It was impacting my family life. It was impacting my relationship with my wife, relationship with my friends. I pretty much just like disconnected every time I went home. But a lot of that came as a result of when the Syrian crisis got started, and there was talk about sending boots on the ground, and being in the 82nd, it was likely that we were going to be the ones that got sent. We used to joke around that second brigade, which is who I belong to, we're never going to get sent because if we left, there would be nobody to mow the grass. But in all seriousness, it was likely going to be us. And so it really kind of put it into perspective like, well,
They just put 20,000 on the ground in Syria.
Yeah, I feel horrible for those guys. I really do. I mean, I feel horrible for everybody in that situation, but like those guys, if they haven't already figured it out,
it's all a shell game.
Yeah.
I think
If they haven't
US
already
is putting
figured it out, they're
troops
going to
there
have a really
secure
horrible
oil fields.
I don't know. I
Because
haven't.
they're,
Maybe, I
they're,
don't know.
there's shell army of, Al Qaeda, Al Nusra, and all, ISIS, all this other bull crap is, that facade is being destroyed. So now the troops go back in to maintain order and keep the oil supply from, not breaking.
Well, it's like something that Jared mentioned. I think it has more to do with the petrodollar and ensuring that it doesn't lose its peg more than actually securing reserves. Because the United States doesn't care who sells oil or who drills oil as long as whoever is selling drilling oil is doing it in dollars.
Well,
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's Saddam Hussein found that out the hard way.
The hard way.
So did Muammar Gaddafi.
Yes. It's so funny because those are things that so many people just go, "Oh, conspiracy theory." It's like, well, no, look at it. They really did. Do you really
Once you
think,
hear it
my
and you
favorite
see
part
it laid
about
out,
that-
you're like,
do
what?
you really think it's that much of a coincidence that these guys are the only ones that were not only refusing, like trying to keep central banking out, they were they were like, you know what, screw this, we're gonna go outside the petrodollar. And
Well, my favorite part about this, and you can prove this because historically the CIA helped stage a coup in a Middle Eastern country because the prime minister wanted to nationalize the oil interests of the country, and the British
Well,
were
he
like,
did.
no. Yeah, and you know what happened to him? He was overthrown, and they installed the Shah.
Yeah.
And what happened 20 years later?
Like a day later.
No.
Well, no. I'm saying like what happened 20 years later after they installed the Shah in Iran.
They got rid of him.
Another
in favor
revolution.
Of, yeah, they got rid of him in favor of Hussein because he outgrew his usefulness.
Well, no, not Hussein. Ayatollah Khomeini.
Khomeini.
Wrong country.
Yeah,
Wrong country.
Yeah, exactly. Khomeini. So the Shah outlived his usefulness. So then they moved on.
If you want to know more about that, look up Kermit Roosevelt. If anybody wants to know more about what we're talking about, look up Kermit Roosevelt. He's the one that orchestrated the whole thing.
Yeah, it was Operation Ajax.
Yep.
But that's what I was getting at. That whole thing is a case study of us doing exactly what we're talking about and being called conspiracy theorists for suggesting is happening. Like it's literally happened in history. It's not conjecture. This is in fact what happened.
Yeah.
So it blows my mind that we're still the term conspiracy theorist and tinfoil hat is still bandied about.
Let me ask you a question, Andre. Let me ask you a question. Do like the other troops? Do you guys? Was anybody ever like talking about this stuff? Like, what are we really fighting for? Like, what's really going on?
Kind of. There was massive displeasure with Obama as president, and everyone was like, "Oh man, fuck that guy. He's a terrible president. I can't believe he's commander-in-chief." But that's as far as it ever went. We all, and I'm sad to say, even me, we all said, "Well, our commander-in-chief is a piece of crap." But he's still our commander-in-chief, and if Congress sends us there, and he sends us there, and Congress authorizes it, we're going, and we're going to be there. That's really as far as that conversation
any
went.
Of his bullshit.
Well, they have, but it's never been in the.
Well, yeah, because they don't have to. They haven't. When's the last time they actually declared a war? Wasn't World War II the last time they actually declared, or did they declare Korea? I don't remember.
Korea.
Was it Korea?
Yeah, but see, they don't have to necessarily declare war. They simply have to keep funding what the president is doing and not invoke the War Powers Act to stop him. Then technically it's all legal.
Correct. Well,
as long as Congress doesn't file an objection, technically it's not illegal.
Oh yeah, well,
which is unbelievable. But hey, whatever. Fuck me.
Well, no, it's not really because everything's legal under the Constitution. They can make whatever they want legal. That's the whole point. But yes, if you're gonna take it at what it's presented to be, not what it actually is, then yeah, that is outlandish. That they, all they have to do is step back, and the whoever's quote unquote in charge can do whatever they want.
Yeah, and the reason I framed it that way is because that's a lot of people who, believe in the federal government. And, we need the U.S. government. It might be way, way too big, but we definitely need a federal government. I'm like, this is what it lets you do. Like, this is literally what happens. I don't know how other way I can put it, but this is what happens.
Well, yeah. Which gets back to the point I was going to mention before when you said about, these things, we actually have this in history where you can show like, look, this is exactly what's happened before. Don't you see the pattern? Last week when we had CJ on from the Dangerous History podcast,
that can't happen here.
We were actually talking about that, and he said, yeah, it's because he told me about these stories about Lyndon Johnson that I've never heard before, about how he was actually more of a ladies' man than JFK and all this. He liked to actually whip his Johnson out. Like, I've never heard these stories before. And apparently, like, not too many people have. I've asked a few people, they're like, no. But there's a lot of this stuff, and even other stuff that I know I've found, I'm sure both of you have found too, that the same thing, like, here you go, here's proof that things at the time were essentially called conspiracy theories, but here you go, here's the proof, 25, 50 years later when the evidence finally comes out, then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, but by then most people don't care. But it's like, what he said is, he's like, it's pretty amazing that all this information is out there, but nobody seems to know it.
It's still there. The proof is still there. Like, it's not like it's not there. We have it.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Well, that's like, I remember right towards the beginning of when I started finally putting all the pieces together, when I was more like extremely conspiracy minded, because I've always been an extremist. So as soon as I started having a feeling something was wrong, I immediately was like, everything's wrong. It's all a lie. Oh my god. And you know,
The whole world's built on a stack of lies.
exactly.
Well, as long as you didn't become a flat earther, I think you did all right. So.
No, well that was
The Earth is flat as hell.
that,
Let me.
that was years before that became a thing.
You know, that's the CIA disinfo. That flat Earth. It's just a hoax. The whole thing.
I still think it's a 4chan hoax, and people are just like totally falling for it. But what I was gonna say is one of the first things I came across back then was that totally blew my mind. And then when I sat back and thought about it, I'm like, why didn't people care about this? Was the what was it, 99? I think the civil case that finally happened where what was her name? Martin Luther King's wife, Coretta Scott King, was that her name?
Yeah.
When she won the civil case against the federal government, that basically said, you know, yep, certain factions of the CIA were involved in your husband's death.
Wow.
And it's like, here you go, this is out there. Nobody cares.
No.
Why?
I know, right?
Not
It's
Why?
those people that were
Why?
marching
Because
back in
it
the
came like
60s. Who
40
cares?
whatever years later, the info finally comes out.
Yeah, when no one's gonna get up in their jimmies about it.
Well, exactly.
Like, oh wow,
That's
yeah,
the
I
thing.
can't believe that happened.
All
Oh.
the big deals, all the most classified information is usually classified for a minimum of 25 years. Most often, I think it's 50. And
Well, a
Yeah,
generation,
50.
and then it doesn't matter, right?
but some of those they've extended because like there's still stuff they refuse to release on Kennedy, even though it's passed.
They won't release the documents for the UFOs.
I don't care about the UFOs. You know.
I'm really hoping that there are secret documents for UFOs, but that's just me with.
There are. Who do you think Hillary Clinton is? She's a reptilian alien. She's a Thetan. She's a Thetan in a human suit.
Oh my goodness.
She's oh my God, yeah.
But
There's no telling what that woman is.
I don't really care.
I think she's a coke addict, if anything.
She's just an evil woman. She's closer to a psychopath than many of these people, but I don't know if I'd call her a full-blown psychopath. She's definitely a sociopath.
I would.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, you're right. She's a sociopath.
Well,
I don't think she's quite psychotic because there's a method to what she does. But she's definitely a sociopath.
I think
Like,
it's
she
like
does not
that
value
royalty
humanity at all.
I think she has like a royalty complex where it's just like, you know, what happens to the underlings, I don't really care about. Like, if you're not at my social stature, then you're as good as dirt to me.
Yeah, but see, I don't even think it's that because that's just like, you know, neglect. Like you have apathy. She has genuine animosity towards I feel like humanity in general and people below her. So like, I mean, there's that one level where, you know, you just don't care about other people, but she actively uses and destroys human beings. Like, human beings are tools in the worst possible way.
Yeah, and of course, and because she like most people like her would likely justify that, oh, she would never do that to like the good people. Like, it's only she uses people that she needs to, or she's going to get the bad guy, or essentially use the, you know, you got to break a few eggs.
What it is she's
analogy.
She's a nihilist.
So
maybe she is. She could be.
Hillary is definitely a nihilist.
And yeah,
she's like, I'm going out with a bang, motherfuckers.
But based on her actions through her entire career, you would have to think that if she is one, she definitely doesn't believe she is, and she's convinced herself that she's warped her mind to convince herself that she actually has this moral code that actually makes sense. I don't think she's. I mean, some of these people, maybe they really honestly don't care, and they could be open about their nihilism, but I don't think because, you know, many of them are, especially like on the Republican side, are still, you know, very religious and stuff. They believe they're moral creatures. You know, there's no they don't understand what they're doing, but they believe
Their
that.
nihilistic solipsis is what they are.
It's insanity. It's pure insanity is what it is.
The TPP is a big thing that they're trying to work on right now to get through. It's either going to get jammed through or it's not. I really don't know. Like I said, they always try to get their stuff passed regardless through the, quote unquote legitimate systems first. But this one seems like they might go pull out all the stops for it. This essentially creates a governing body above a bunch of different nations that creates essentially an oligarchy that ensures certain corporations' profits.
Oh, goody, because the UN wasn't enough.
It's essentially like the European Union, but for big, huge multinational corporations.
Sweet.
And basically, like, let's say you grow potatoes and you're messing up, Monsanto's potatoes or whatever. They could sue you and the government for losses. So
now, would that be considered
welfare.
Going full potato, or?
No, that's full. Yeah, that's corporate welfare to the potato level. Legitimate
potato.
extraction. Well, the corporation's losing this profit. We got to take it from this person to recoup the profit. It's just wow. It's.
So they're taking from that person twice, and everybody else once. Good deal.
Essentially.
Yeah, I still have. I mean, this thing's been floated. This thing's been being talked about for what, at least a couple of years now, right? And
yeah.
I still never really bothered to investigate it. All I needed to know was that it was supposed to be promoting quote unquote free trade. Which in government
Which
speak,
obviously means it's not.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I really needed to know. Mm-hmm. So I didn't.
I'm with you.
I don't. This thing you're talking about with the corporations and stuff. I haven't really gotten to it. I mean, is this new news or is this just what's being talked about right now?
Basically, WikiLeaks just released a bunch of stuff.
Oh, that's right. This thing still hasn't been fully released to the public, correct?
Yeah, and some people are cherry picking through some stuff. Obviously the whole story isn't known right now, but from what I'm reading, it creates this essentially unstoppable corporate machinery, a new government to sue governments and stuff. It's really, really wild. Really, really wild.
Well, that's interesting timing that it came at, because with the U.S. courts and all their supreme mightiness just declare that people can sue another country's government. Didn't that just happen?
Yeah, they could sue Saudi Arabia or something that's going through the House or whatever. There's just a lot of scary stuff to ensure profits, and that's something that
Well, that's all it is.
Corporate fascist. That's something that they love. We can use government to ensure profits. Like, that is pretty heinous.
Well, that's all it is.
That's
though.
1984.
Well, it's just see, and it's fun. It's the irony of the fact that many of the defenders of government and the people that would look at us as crazy are claiming that the government has to protect them and us, because the royal we, from the big bad corporations who would do these things to us. But that's exactly what the government is doing to them. And it just gets completely lost.
But you see, Jeremy, without the government,
Absolutely.
who would protect us from monopolies?
Absolutely.
Without the government, who would protect us from government?
I know, it would be madness.
Yeah,
It would be anarchy.
It's reaching absurd levels, like the excuses for government or centralization of power. It's just very.
Well, no,
confusing.
the centralization of power from any average person who's all about that type of stuff, that makes perfect sense, because that's what they've been conditioned for quite a long time. That's basically what the whole end game has been, for people to look for, depend on, and ask for more government. More centralization, more, that's exactly what it's been leading to for, here in the USSA, it's been leading that way, at least like hardcore for the past, 120 years, maybe somewhere in that range.
Yeah,
I guess.
Since the Industrial Revolution.
Definitely the last century. I would say definitely the last 100 years. I mean, progressivism as a movement started, in the late
1870s,
19th
1880s.
century.
Yeah, 1880s.
But it didn't really pick up steam until the turn of the century
No,
when, they
but-
started to realize, oh my God, all of these technologies that we can use to convince people that government is freaking awesome.
Yeah, that definitely took a huge, that definitely had a huge upswing then. But the groundwork really got, it got laid a heck of a lot earlier than that, because wasn't the Prussian model of schooling came in before the
60s.
war between the states, or just after?
Yeah, it was the
1960s.
1820. No, it was
It was
no,
before,
it was
right?
before that.
Yeah, right. I thought it was the 30s
It was like
or
the
40s,
1820s or
Oh, yeah.
1830s.
Yeah, I thought I remember reading that recently. But in either case, it's definitely been since then, and it's just it's been on that path where be docile, memorize these things we tell you to memorize,
Shut up, obey.
and be content little workers. That was the whole.
Jawohl, mein Herr.
Give up your soul for freedom and creature comforts, or their version of freedom and creature comfort.
Yeah, and like the frog in the pot, it's taken forever, and so many people are got used to it, and then other people are born into it, and you don't know any after a generation or two you don't know any different.
Yeah. Fish and water, man. So
Anyway,
we all three vape, right? This is the third topic we're
Yes.
going to talk about. We all three vape, right?
I love how we gave
there's
extensive
no way
treat-
we're going back to cigarettes. I couldn't go back to cigarettes if I
I
wanted
just
to.
want to say, hold on. I just want to say, I love the fact that we gave such an extensive amount of time to the TPP. It's exactly what it deserves. I
Well,
feel.
it's very complex right now. It's going to unfold more, but it's just like this is pretty serious thing here that they're trying to fleece over everybody. This TPP thing.
It's gonna be bad. I know that. So but again, that's one of those things, as we talked about before. There's nothing you can really do about it. I mean, what, you can sound the alarm bells? Sure, and
Nobody's going to listen
can
to
only
you.
do
well,
what
no,
you can control.
well, no.
man.
You if somebody with the knowledge that like the three of us have of how things actually work versus the average statist who just knows what they were taught and knows how the system works based on what they were taught, will still write their congressman and call and do all this stuff. And certain things have been able to be stopped. I mean, if you want to believe the full narrative, the last go around in Syria was the one time that it really got shown, like there were so many people that were like, heck no, to get the hell out of here, we want nothing to do with this. And they actually called to the point where all those representatives had no choice but to be like, yeah, we're getting all these calls. So it can work sometime if you believe that the system works or stuff like that. But it's just it could be looked at as another way just to raise awareness among these people, the ones who are more apt to call, that when it still does go through, because when things this big, they can't be stopped. Like, they have to. Like, look what happened in Syria. They were able to. We stopped them from going in. But what was it? 6 months, 12 months later, before they found they found another way to get in the back. Like, whatever they want to do, they're still going to do. But at the very least, a few thousand more people who go on such a mission to try to call the congressman and rally the troops and get all these people to call and write and do whatever in order to stop this thing, every time that happens, there's always a percentage that's the final straw for them. They get completely disillusioned at that point. They're like, oh my God, like, it still doesn't, like, no matter what we do, it doesn't work. So, like, that's what I'm counting on with stuff like that. So, like,
rider legislation can piss a lot of people off.
Yeah, well, I could see a usefulness in maybe not going out of your way to reach out to people that would be in that type of position that you might be able to convince in some way to get excited about it and want to start calling and writing and doing all this stuff and getting their friends and other people they know to do it.
But you shouldn't have to badger someone to not be a parasite. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like, why even why have an apparatus that you have to, beg for them to not be a parasite?
It's not a matter of who's begging.
I mean, that's how they were raised.
Well, that's what it is when you're calling your congressman and begging them not to, vote yes on this bill or whatever.
Well, yeah, but these people believe in the system.
Exactly.
Like,
I'm sitting here talking. I'm sitting here talking about people that are willing to call, which means obviously what Andrei just said. You're automatically like trying to talk like 3 levels past that. That's not the way you break in with these people, Dave.
No, yeah, I just the ludicrous of the whole the
Yeah, Dave.
How absurd the whole situation is kind of perplexing.
Well, again,
well,
no.
I mean, statism is absurdity. It really is.
It is.
The
yeah, but like you were saying, Andrei, this is what they were taught to believe, just like we were taught to believe it, And before we finally saw the light, well, I would have been one of those people.
I know,
because I was in the past. I made phone calls. I wrote letters. I did protests and rallies and all that. I did it all. So if I was still on that side,
I know, and it's just you're right. It's just it's so hard to keep yourself from feeling like you're a lone voice screaming into the wilderness and nobody cares. It is so hard sometimes.
Well, no, and I get that but I'm not talking about necessarily trying to reach people. I'm talking about just trying to coax them into doing what they would possibly do naturally anyway.
Okay.
But
I got
so they become
after.
more. Yeah, so they become more disillusioned. Like that's the only thing I can think of in that scenario that would be worthwhile. Like hopefully more people, like with the whole Ron Paul thing. He got a lot of people excited about politics for the first time, and then a bunch of other people excited about freedom, and then a decent percentage of them took it even further than he did. And we're like, yeah, man, thanks. I'm done with this altogether. Awesome. So, like... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, so you have that, and then that's what I kept saying about the whole, quote-unquote Bernie revolution the entire time. Well, at the very least, even if we get, like, a quarter, an eighth of the number of anarchists that were born out of the Ron Paul movement, that are born out of the Bernie movement, I'll call that a huge-ass victory, So, like, because normally it's harder to reach the leftists. Because they know nothing else, whether they're...
I wanted to point out, I just a subtle observation today. I'm sure you listened to him for a long time, or on and off. Sean Hannity, Jeremy, you know the guy?
Yes, I know who Sean Hannity is.
Okay. Sean Hannity would refer to himself as probably what, a Reagan conservative, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well,
because
all right, a Reaganite conservative.
Of course, because he worships
Today on the radio, I heard himself refer to himself as a libertarian.
Well, what's Mark Levin saying these days? Because
he's a libertarian. He says so is Alex Jones. So it's just like this progression.
No, but it's not a progression.
Everywhere.
It's not a progression.
Are they trying to co-op?
Oh, absolutely. Those two, absolutely. Levin's a snake, man, and he was the one. I mean, I listened to Hannity a little bit because I followed Levin for a while before when I was still
You don't like the great one, Mark Levin?
I have my picture with him, like getting my, getting my, my book signed to get my picture with him and everything.
Sounds wormy, doesn't he?
Looking back on it, yes. Not, but
it's a very nasally Jew, like that typical Jew.
Oh my God,
that's racist.
This took a turn.
That is not racist. Nowadays, if you was to hear him, you would think Jewish. Get off my back.
Dave's just shooting all over the place tonight.
People have stereotypes for a reason. Get off my back.
Okay, one thing I did want to say,
hillbilly.
One thing I did want to say, going back to the convincing people to do what they do naturally, I have this picture of like any one of us, but particularly Jeremy. He has a friend of his that's still completely into the system, and his friend's just like, oh, I can't believe this is happening, and Jeremy's just like sitting in his chair saying, oh yeah, you should probably call your congressman, so try and convince him not to do that. And his friend's just like, yeah, I'll go do that. And they go through all the steps and yada yada whatever. And Jeremy's just sitting in his chair, just like watching, just kind of got like a shit-eating grin on his face. And then finally, you know, months later, Frank comes back like, "Oh my God, the government is terrible." Jared's just like, "That's good. That's good. Welcome to the club."
Well, yeah, it's kind of the point I'm at with a lot of people, because I've tried every other tactic, and why not? Just, you know,
Oh
like I
my
said,
God, you're right.
all I was saying is I can find the usefulness in ramping some of these people up, because more people figure it out every day. I mean, even people who become just completely apathetic are sometimes better than the ones that still believe.
That's where I was, and it was very easy. I was like, yeah, well, all this makes sense.
Well, yeah, but I'm not even saying, like, they can stay apathetic for a while. That's fine, because the whole thing, you know, I mean, what's the number you threw out? You said it was 10% of the culture.
It has to
10%.
be in the bounds of a society, in a culture. To change a specific culture, 10% of that culture has to adopt an idea at a religious level, essentially. Like, they have to want to tell everyone about it.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, and that's basically along the same lines of, you know, the numbers I look at for, like, non-compliance and stuff like that. Like, anything like that. That's all you really need. You just need that amount of people, and everybody else will just go with the crowd, because that's, you know, most people hop on the bandwagon very easily. You know, I'm still susceptible to it. I try to be more cognizant of it now, but, you know, it's just...
Oh yeah, me too.
It's
me too.
It's become human nature, where people are just, it's, you know, the go along to get along thing, where you just kind of follow along, and if you see that tireless minority that's promoting this stuff, and they have whatever they've done or whatever they're doing, it's set up in a way that nobody's actually providing any real counter arguments. At best they're flustered, and they're screaming back at them and trying to, like, attack their characters, or, you know, make up stories throughout history, whatever. Like, you know, people are dubbed witches or whatever, you know, like any crazy thing like that, like, to distract from the fact, well, you can't actually argue against this. So so hopefully, like, you know, like I said, my whole thing is I'm looking at ways to try to find, with a hands-off approach, have other people just kind of stumble across it. And like I said, I wouldn't suggest necessarily going out of your way to find these people to rile them up in this manner. But if you have people in your lives who are, you know, hardcore statists, where they still not only want to vote, but just for the purpose of voting, but they're more than willing to make a phone call or write that email or whatever it is. Like, you know, when you talk to them, instead of not talking at all because you get into arguments because of your views, or talking about something completely different to avoid talking about this, here's a way you could still talk politics with them, and just be like, hey, you know, do you know about this thing? You know, I don't, you know, if they're aware of your views or whatever, like, well, you know, I don't get involved in this stuff, but you still do, so you may want to take a look at this, and you may want to call your senator or whoever it is. Like,
Yeah.
you can still do that, and I like I said, I think the more people that become disillusioned with the system, the more often these days, with the, you know, the ability to communicate so rapidly and find this information once you're finally pushed to that point. You know, I've said it time and time again. I really believe, other than the complete psychopaths and the people that are not mentally capable of understanding, everybody other than that has that aha moment in them somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding that trigger. And another thing that CJ mentioned last week about his style a lot of times is, it's more of a he pulls rather than pushes, where you don't have
I've been
to...
doing this thing recently where I just, like, rattle the chains and drop the key, walk away, man. It's been working a lot better than trying to look at this, look at that, read this, watch this video. It's like, you know, like, you're not going to get people to go out of their way to want to learn something that's going to shake their entire worldview.
I don't know. It worked for my mom. I mean, and it's weird to think that my parents, of all people, I could get this message across to, but my mother has been strangely receptive to the message of liberty when I started bringing up issues that I was talking about. Now, I mean, she initially confronted me about, like, oh, what's all this anarchy business, and how, you know, this is dangerous stuff. You shouldn't be getting involved in this. I'm like, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And so on and so forth.
Getting
and
involved
I mean,
in
it took
slavery
a little while, but
seems much more dangerous to me.
Exactly, right. But no, and then that's kind of how it went. So, and she ended up being pretty receptive to it. My dad's still pretty stubborn, but he's kind of just apathetic about politics in general. So I don't think I'm going to get much traction with him anyway. He's not a very. He's an engineer. He's a software.
Well, what Jeremy's saying
engineer,
is he might be the most fertile ground.
Well, it's not. No, I'm not saying. I'm not even saying well, he could be. That was kind of the point you actually ended up making, Dave. What I was saying is that people like that, even if they remain apathetic, that's fine, as long as they're not.
Yeah.
As long as they're not more
A non-actor.
They're completely
actively engaged.
Exactly. It's much more beneficial for us to have people who are apathetic rather than who are actively engaged that we still haven't convinced to at least look at these ideas. You know, they're more dangerous in that situation. So the apathetic are fine because they'll just end up hopping on the bandwagon once they see other people going, oh look, we're gonna do it. We want to do it this way, and look how much more prosperous we are already, and look how much happier and more content, and things are a lot more positive over here because we don't have this horrible government thing to deal with.
Oh, one can only dream, right?
Well, like
Yep.
Yeah, but
every day.
Yeah. I mean, I've said before that I gave up the dream a long time, a couple of years ago. Where I just
essentially all you have to do is have a bunch of people move to an area that essentially have the same culture of violently resisting slavery, and just that be the culture of that area, and you would essentially have anarchy. But it's, that's just a means to an end or whatever.
I think in some respects getting people together is definitely helpful, but it's only if you're going to have a concerted effort where you're going to. If you're going to bring people together, then I think that's the best opportunity to engage in like the full-scale non-compliant stuff that I always talk about, where you only really need 8 to 10% of a population. Actually, really less than that, but that's the conservative number. That just saying no doesn't have to be violent. I mean, if they try to attack you, then yes, you can retaliate, but it doesn't. You don't have to initiate any aggression.
They usually lose when they do that, though.
Yes, that's true. But in either case, you still don't have to initiate aggression in order to accomplish that end. You just have to say no in a large enough number. And it is not anywhere near as large as most people think. Like I said, 8 to 10% is a conservative number, because law enforcement alone is outnumbered about 300 to 1 across, or more, maybe 30.
And it's higher for that for bureaucrats.
Well, yeah, but it does, and then like I said, active duty in all the armed forces, I think is like less than 250,000. I think that's what
we're at 220,000 right now.
That's everything, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, okay, so like I said, there you go. So add that, even if you round up, okay, 1.5 million, it's still more than 300 because there's more than 300 million people in this country. So it's, there's a heck of a lot of people that all it takes is just saying no and they can't do anything. So if you're going to move people to an area for that purpose, or if you're going to move people to an area, I think that would be the perfect time to engage in something like that. Otherwise, you just have to keep planting the seeds to help try to grow the culture around you, which is kind of the stuff we're talking about, where it's just...
Yeah.
Yeah, you actually just have to be the change. Like, you have to take action.
Well, absolutely. You can't just sit back and expect other people to do it. But
you're right.
There are different methods, and different things are going to get through to different people. Like Dave, you were saying... You're doing the just drop and run now, basically, which is basically the guerrilla gardening stuff that CJ was talking about last week, which I really love, and I love that analogy. And that method works with some people. Some people really, really need to find it on their own and start putting the pieces together on their own. Anything else will feel forced to them, and they're going to get upset, frustrated, or just give up. Because I've seen that happen. I went through that to a certain extent. And I've seen that happen with other people too. Other people need to be prodded along a little more and given a little more information up front. other
Some people just have to see it for themselves. Like it has to actually happen to them. Yeah.
That too. That's usually how most people end up finally breaking their vision of the sacred cow police, where.
Well, yeah, that's what happened. That was my experience, and that's exactly how it ended up happening for me. It wasn't until I was in a position where, my life was actually on the line for the state, for a group of men and women who were going to tell me what to do and use force against me if I didn't agree with them. It wasn't until that moment that it clicked for me. So yeah, that's definitely a big one.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably get wrapping up, and unless you guys have anything you want to close out with, Andrei?
No, I just want to thank Andrei for coming on again, man. Really cool having you on again.
It's always a pleasure.
Some cool
thank you for waiting for me. I'm sorry I was so horribly late, but I got here, and I'm glad I got the chance to be on the show again. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man. And we'll cut you a slack. Dealing with road pirates, I understand how that is. So, can't really do much about that. And like we said, you got to play the Welfie card, and you got out of it. So I guess
I did.
Card. Yeah, I did.
It was a happy ending. So there you go.
That's my little secret nickname for anybody that collects a government check in any sort of way. I just call them
a Welfie. All right.
Yeah. It's my pejorative I made up.
I don't know if you made that up, but okay. All right.
I've never heard anyone call anybody that, but hey, whatever. Anecdotal evidence.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, Andrei, it was great having you on, and like I said, we'll give you a break for being late this time.
Guys, if you want to help us out by donating to patreon.com/Seeds of Liberty, it really helps us out. $1 a month really helps us push this show forward. We're trying to get more shows, trying to up our bandwidth, trying to host more content. All the time working to get more Liberty content to your ears so you don't have to listen to the status propaganda all damn day. And yeah, that's about it.
Yes. So thank you very much, Andrei. Dave, as always, it's been a good conversation. I don't know how we managed to end up where we did, but that's usually the case here. So
it was a great journey anyway.
Yes. It's the journey that's the fun.
That's
anyway,
right.
So
that's
there
right.
You go. All right, so this has been the Seeds of Liberty podcast. All of our information can be found at theseedsofliberty.com, and we will catch you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Enemies is just enables you to see it too. Menial, recently reading into the thesis, mirroring the people who completely fail to see it though. Seeing is believing, yes, the reason is appealing most. Reading enemies is just enables you to see it too.
Now that you put it that way, I have the answer to that question. It's projection. That's what it is. It's not a cop-out to call us utopians. They're actually projecting their own self-hatred onto us.
Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to bipcot.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.